Lightbearers, Treasure in Fragile Vessels. Take 1, by Elliot Dillon. Gazer, Chapter 9. The first thing he heard when he awoke was the sound of Lot's voice letting out a string of Thai Japanese, followed by the sound of metal scraping against metal. When he opened his eyes, he found the front of the car they'd been traveling in was smoking, as Lot stepped away from it, covered in grease. "It's shot," grumbled the girl. "We're just gonna have to hoof it." Gathering her things from the car, she called for Jeremiah to hurry up. "We've got a lot of ground to cover if we're going to get to the light sanctum before winter." "What's that?" "It's where we're hoping to find more information on the location of Dark's Bane." As they walked away from the car, he cast a look back at it. Seeing the blown engine and the grease in her hands, he remembered how Brian had once told him about his love for girls who knew how to handle cars. "Were you trying to fix the car?" "Trying and failing, yes." "Did you learn how to fix cars from your dad, too?" "No, my dad was more the type to get a new one when the old one broke down. I learned to fix cars from Oyaban." "Who?" "When my father was finally arrested, I was left on the streets to fend for myself. I was caught one day by a cop who took pity on me and had me live with him. He raised me during my late middle school years and onward. I owe him a lot, and I hope to see him soon." "Where is he?" "With my father." "Was he a dirty cop?" Confused by his question at first, she finally realized what he thought she'd meant as she explained, "They're both dead now." The thought of her losing both her father and her father figure before she'd reached adulthood made him sad as he told her, "I'm sorry." "It's fine. Oyaban had a close relationship with the Source, and my dad found him while in prison. We'll all be reunited someday, and then I'll get to introduce them." Though she was smiling, there were tears in her eyes at the memory of the men. Beside her, Momo looked less intimidating as he touched the girl's shoulder comfortingly. They continued on in silence for a time, till another question came to Jeremiah's mind. "How exactly did you get assigned this task to find the Dark's Bane?" Lot looked thoughtful for a moment, then shrugged. "That's just how it worked out." That's all she would say as she continued the conversation by telling him about all the escapades she and her father used to go on. "There was this one time when I wanted French toast and all we had was milk." She laughed at the memory. "Let me tell you, this is a crazy story." "What exactly is the good of me being able to gaze into the future?" asked Jeremiah. The group was traveling through a section of forest which had been interrupted by a line of barbed wire. As Momo held the sharp metal up, Jeremiah and Lot crawled through to the other side. As a gazer, you can see into people's future, into their hearts in some cases. You can see the outcome of what their choices will be and can warn them so that they have a chance to change it. "And if I don't warn them?" Lot looked back at Momo, who was now crawling under the wire. "Then their blood will be on your head as well as their own. If you had warned them and they had not changed, then it would have been their own fault. But because you did not warn them to give them a chance to change, you will be held accountable for their life." He shivered at the thought, then shivered again, quickly realizing it was more from the chill air than from his responsibility. Lot noticed his shaking as she looked back at Momo. "It's only going to get colder as we head north. We should get some better clothes." "Where are we going to find clothes in the middle of the woods?" asked Jeremiah as he started to rub his arms. "The Source will provide," replied the girl sagely. Then she added, "But to make sure." Bowing her head, she started to fold her hands together, then stopped, as she instead placed them into her pockets to keep them warm. "Source, we could use some warm clothes for Jerry. If you could help us out, we'd be much appreciative." When she opened her eyes, she noticed the displeased look on Jeremiah's face as she apologized. "Oh, right, sorry, Jeremiah." A short time later, they came upon a log cabin from which a curl of smoke was issuing from the chimney of the home. "You guys stay here," advised Lot. "If they're not friendly, we don't need them to know how many of us there are." Momo and Jeremiah stayed within earshot behind a set of bushes near the cabin as Lot approached the front door. After a knock, they heard the door creak on its hinges as the owner opened up. Taking one look at the girl, the man inside queried gruffly, "What do you want?" "I'm just a simple frog looking for a safe pond," replied Lot. Jeremiah was confused by the strange phrase, and the man seemed just as confused. "What are you babbling on about?" inquired the man. "Are you one of those grassheads? Get out of here." Lot looked confused, then a thought came to her. She said, "Fish! I meant fish." At these words, the man's demeanor changed as he motioned for her to hurry inside. "Before someone sees you." A short time later, she came back out with a coat and a bundle of warm clothes for Jeremiah. After he had changed, they continued their journey. "What was that all about?" asked Jeremiah of her exchange with the old man. "He's a believer like us," explained Lot. "That's the phrase we use to signal to others we are one of them." "But what if he wasn't? Then he would have reacted how he did when I said it wrong. That would let me know that I'm probably not safe to stick around." "But how do you know if he did recognize the phrase he's not just someone who's learned it and is a fake believer?" She looked back at Momo, who simply nodded. Momo was pretty good about reading people. He would have let me know if the guy wasn't legit. She looked back at him, and when you become a strong gazer, you will be able to look into people's hearts and see their true intent. How do I do that? You need to become stronger in the light. You can't rely on others' lights or the interpretation of the light. You need to get your own view of it, your own relationship with the source. Because if they are wrong, you won't know it if you don't have a clear image of the light, and you will be led astray with them. Reaching into her pack, she pulled out a small, leather-bound book that was about the size of her hand. This is a small collection of light we've gathered from those we've met. Since Thoughtsicon banned the book, we've had to rely on our memory of passages and the general message. Taking it, he opened it to find the words inside glowing with a faint light. As his eyes adjusted to the light, he saw the words were written in another script. What kind of language is this? What do you mean? These words. I don't recognize any of these words or symbols. Do they use a new language in the future? She looked at Momo for a moment, as if in guidance, and then took the book back as she said, Sorry, I forgot. Sometimes people can't read in their visions or dreams. You even might notice that sometimes you can't understand people's words. It's all normal, as some things are hidden by the source. Ducking under a tree branch, he looked back at her as he asked, Do books in the future all glow like that? Just the ones that are filled with the light. What is this light? The light is the word of the source. He is the one that is the true ruler of this world, and the one that is going to bring the world back to its original state once Thoughtsicon and his followers are destroyed. But before that can happen, we have to finish spreading the light to the world, and to do that, we need the Dark's Bane. How exactly is this super army supposed to help spread the light? The army will come as a help from the source, to strengthen us, so that we will not fall to the darkness. We need to daily commune with the source in order to gain this strength, to accept his light and to grow in it as we understand what it means for us. But not only that, we are to use this communion to ask the source to help others, both our friends and our enemies. Your enemies? You mean like the Oni? She nodded slowly. Though they have closed their eyes to the light, we can still ask that they will not be able to harm or influence those still searching. We ask that the source will also help us to forgive them when they hurt us, remembering that we too could have been in their place if not for the mercy of the source's light shining on us. I thought you said they chose to ignore the light. Right. How is it merciful for this source to have kept you from succumbing to the darkness and not them? The source gave all of us a chance to choose him. There is no one person he destined to fall or to succeed. We all have a free choice. But some choose to respond to the plan he has for us, while others choose to follow the false ruler and their own inclinations. That is why we must ask the source to help us escape our temptations and to protect us from the darkness of the evil one, so we will choose him over our dark longings. These gloves do a lot more than just summon an army, then. She smiled, excited at his coming to this conclusion. Yes, and so much more. They let us ask for knowledge, for guidance, to ask the source to provide for our needs, to forgive us, to heal us, and with them we are able to thank and praise the source for all he's done for us. Up ahead they found a clearing where Momo made a signal that Lot recognized as meaning they should make camp. While Momo fixed them something to eat, Jeremiah asked Lot to teach him how to use her bow. It's actually pretty simple once you get a hang of it, explained the girl as she showed him what to do, then had him take a turn. When he pulled back the string, he found it to be harder than she made it look and wasn't able to get it back fully before he let go. That's okay. This time, instead of using your arms, use more of your back muscles to pull it back. Your shoulder and arm muscles should really be more relaxed when you pull. Try again. He did, and found it to be a little easier as he drew the string back completely before letting it go. Good job! Now let's try with an arrow. After putting an arrow on, she told him, if you have to, use 3 fingers to pull it back, but try to use only 2. Then relax your fingers and let the string do the rest of the work to push the arrow forward. After he'd fired off a shot, she complimented him. Now try and aim before you even lift the bow. I know, it seems weird, but you'll get the hang of it, and it will make things a lot easier in the long run. As he fired off another shot, she clapped excitedly. Good, good! Looking back toward the fire, where Momo was roasting some wild vegetables, she asked the man, How come you never let me teach you to shoot? The man didn't say anything, but whatever he'd done made Lot laugh as she replied, Oh, you... When food was ready, the two headed over to sit around the fire. As they ate, Jeremiah admitted, Maybe I should stick with learning hand combat. Do you think you could teach me, Momo? Why are you wanting to learn how to fight? I would just like to be more useful the next time we come upon the Oni. Plus, I've always wanted to learn martial arts, and this could be my only chance. You okay with that, Momo? The man didn't give any signal if he was, but Lot seemed to think he had agreed as she told Jeremiah, He'll teach you in the morning. For now, it's late. Night. Curling up into a ball near the fire, the girl was soon asleep, faster than Jeremiah had ever seen. Looking back at Momo, he noticed the man staring at him, the light from the fire reflecting in the glass of his helmet ominously. Feeling freaked out by his steady gaze, Jeremiah told him good night, then lay down with his back to the man. Before he realized he'd fallen asleep, Lot was waking him up. "Let's get a move on, buddy." Speaker, Chapter 13. "Where have you been lately?" inquired Fred the next day at school. Confused by his friend's words, Elijah asked what he'd meant. "What I mean is, every time I ask you to hang out, you turn me down. What gives?" Though Fred was obviously still annoyed at his opinion of the tablets, the teen had decided to let it go as he tried to plan a get-together with Elijah. "Sorry, I've been busy with other things." "What things?" Elijah thought of the lessons Jean had been teaching him and the days she'd been in his house. Though he just thought it was increasing his knowledge in the source, Jean had said the study would also bring about a change in his life. His mother had seemed to notice this as she commented on how helpful he was lately. Devin also noticed a change, which he did not like, as he said it made Elijah less easy to annoy. "We not only speak of the light within us, but also show it through our actions. Sometimes people will respond more to the holy life we live, which adds power to our words. While some will argue with our words, none can argue with the living example we are, due to the changing effects of the source's light in our lives." Remembering Jean's words, he asked Fred if he'd noticed a change in him. "Yeah, I've noticed a change. You don't hang out with me anymore, and you talk about the light way too much." "I'm sorry, would it make you feel any better if we hung out today?" "Maybe. What did you have in mind?" "Whatever you want, my treat." His friend grinned, making Elijah slightly hesitant at having conceded to such an offer. "Then burgers it is." Elijah let out a low groan as he recalled the co-ed burger joint. The food isn't even that good. It's less about the food and more about the atmosphere. Take in the atmosphere and you'll see the food will taste a lot better. Though he agreed to try this, at the restaurant he was again hard-pressed to find anything enjoyable about the place. He didn't care how cute the waitresses were. It wasn't like any of them would actually give him the time of day outside of being a customer. Then there was the food, which was overdone in his opinion. He would have been fine with a simple burger with only lettuce, tomato cheese, and a few condiments. He did not need one made with grilled pineapple, special fruit sauce, and a side of sliced fruit. At the end of the day, he was happy when he and Fred parted ways. Though he hadn't realized it until that day, he and Fred were growing distant in their likes. While his friend still enjoyed scoping out girls who were way out of his league and drooling over burgers, Elijah would have much rather been out in nature looking at the majesty of creation, or back home learning from Jean about the light shining within the source's words. He did not know when this change had come about in him, but now that it was there, he realized it was probably getting closer to the time when they should leave. There was a work to do, and he was finally ready to do it. Elijah woke the next morning to the sound of his father yelling, followed by the sound of loud footsteps. Before he could fully awaken, his father burst into his room, screaming about something he could not quite make out. "What?" Hurrying in after the man, his mother tried to calm her husband as he threw a piece of paper down on Elijah's bed. "What is this?" Looking at the paper, he found it was one of the notes Jean had written to him about their plans to leave. "Honey, they were probably just discussing about when he leaves for college. She can tell how much we care for him and how hard it will be on us to have him go." His father did not seem convinced as he asked, "Are you two running off together? What kind of things has that girl put into your head?" Setting the note aside, he rose from his bed as he assured his parents, "Everything's going to be okay. I know it doesn't really make sense now, but this is what I need to do." At these words, his mother grew pale as she realized her husband's suspicions had been right. You are running away with her?" "We're not running away. I was going to tell you before I left." "You are not 18 yet," replied his father. "You cannot leave this house without my permission." "I'm sorry, Dad, but I have a higher calling. I have to go with her." Is she pregnant?" asked his mother, her voice sounding close to tears. "You don't have to leave. You both can stay here." "No, Mom, it's not like that between us. I'm supposed to help her in spreading the message." "What message?" "That the end is near and we need to get ready." "Nonsense!" cried his dad. "How can you say the end is near?" "I've been studying for a while, and everything I have read has pointed to this conclusion. The light has led me to believe there is a work that needs to be done, and I have a part in spreading it. I'm sorry, Mom, Dad, but I have to do this." His dad was ready to object, but a hand on his arm from his wife quieted him as she said, "You really think this is what the source is calling you to?" Her husband looked astonished at her words as he inquired, "You're not seriously going along with this?" "I've always told you that I thought Elijah was called to something special. I've been praying about things and studying the book with Jean, and I have come to the same conclusion. Things are getting ready for something major, if not the end, and if our son has been called by the source to participate in that final work, then I don't want to stop him." His dad did not look happy in the slightest as his wife instructed him to come talk with her out in the hall. While he heard bits of their heated discussion through the wall, he gathered up a few belongings he thought he needed for the work he was about to embark on. When his door opened a few minutes later, he was dressed and ready to go. On seeing him, his mother burst out crying as she hurried over to hug him. Behind her, his father looked torn as he turned away. As this went on, his brother passed the door, noting the strange display as he peeked into the room. "What's going on in here?" "Your brother is leaving us," replied his father curtly. "What do you mean?" "The girl has convinced him he's some kind of light-bearer or something, and that he is to go about the country spreading the source's light." "Why would you want to do that?" Elijah approached his father, who looked torn between ordering him to stay and bursting out in tears. In the end, the man hugged him, as Elijah told his brother, "Because it is what the source wants of me, and I want to do his will." "Why?" Elijah hugged his brother next as he stated, "That's something I hope you will learn for yourself." He wanted to stay, but knew he would be too close to things. The source had another mission for him, and he trusted that while he was gone, the source would use another to reach them. With his goodbyes done, he headed downstairs and out the door. Jean was waiting in the driveway with her few belongings. With a look that asked if he was ready, he cast one final look back at his childhood home. Then, with a breath to firm his resolve, he turned back to her. "I'm ready. Lead the way." Dreamer, Chapter 9. Once outside the cave, Bob asked them where they were headed. Turning to Ezekiel for guidance, Noah asked him what he had seen. Metal stilts on top of which rested a metal ball. There were words on it, but I couldn't make them out. "He always has trouble with words," explained Noah to Bob. This statement annoyed Ezekiel, who tried to focus in on the words in order to prove her wrong, but found the bright light from his memory to be keeping him from seeing it clearly again. And there was this annoying bright light off to the right that kept me from seeing what it said. He added the last part in order to prove that it wasn't his fault he couldn't read the words. "That sounds like—" Bob said a word which Noah didn't seem to agree with, as she said her own word. "Why can't they speak English all the time?" thought Ezekiel as he started to zone out from the conversation. Through the trees, he spotted a light floating above the ground. It seemed to dance about, as if moving to a song that only it could hear. As the older teens talked, Ezekiel wandered toward the light, which started to blink as if in a code. Getting closer, he kept his gaze focused on the orb, which blinked rapidly, then slowed, then flashed rapidly again. "What you looking at?" inquired Noah as she seemed to appear at his ear. Looking from her to the light, he found it to still be swaying, as if in its own dance routine as it continued to blink. "What is that?" Pointing to the light, Noah answered, "A flower?" "No, the firefly-looking thing." Bob looked to Noah as if he thought Ezekiel had lost it, while the girl looked excited by his statement. "Oh, goody, an awake dream! What are you seeing?" Not sure what she meant, he looked back at the light as it continued to blink. "It's just a little orb of light, really? You don't see it?" Both of them shook their heads. It's blinking as if in some kind of code." "What's the code say?" asked Bob. "I don't know. I don't exactly have the key now, do I?" Ezekiel knew his mother would chide him for snapping at the older teen, but he was getting tired of this whole vision thing. He just wanted to be safe at home, not looking for some dumb book of nightlights. "Concentrate," stated Noah simply. "Focus on what you are seeing and listen." "What's that?" Noah clamped Bob's lips shut with her fingers as she told him, "Shh." Not wanting her to do the same to him, he looked back at the orb, which was still patiently blinking. Closing his eyes for a moment, he took in a deep breath, then let it out slowly as he opened his eyes again. As soon as he had, he found the orb to have been replaced with a tall, bright, and shining light, which had the silhouette of a person. Through the light, he could see the person's lips moving, but could not hear the sound they were making. "What? I can't hear you. What are you saying?" The being of light did not seem to hear him as it continued to talk, its lips seeming to be repeating the same phrase over and over. As he concentrated on the lips, he started to hear a faint sound like a humming coming from deep within him. As the words hummed within, they started to form sounds which became words which did not form a complete thought, as all he heard was fragile, treasure, forsaken, and glory. None of it made sense to him, and when he told Noah about it, she shrugged, as confused as he was. "Not all dreams make sense," explained Noah, "at least not when you first receive them. Don't worry. Eventually everything will come together. If not now, then later." The thought did not comfort him, but he did not argue with it as they continued on their way away from the being of light, who continued to talk as if trapped in a loop. Having decided on a location, Noah led the way as they headed to the next spot Ezekiel had dreamed of. "It's pretty far away," explained Noah, "so we might have to stop for the night before we get there." The thought made him feel instantly tired, as he wished the dream structures would stop being so far away from each other. My feet can only take so much. Worse yet, the plant growth only seemed to get worse as they were forced to squeeze between branches. "Seriously, why can't you use your sword to cut this?" "Our swords only cut through darkness," explained Noah, which really explained nothing. Turning to Bob in hopes of a more comprehensible explanation, the young man just nodded as if that was the answer. What is with these people? Continuing on, Ezekiel noticed Bob casting strange glances in his direction, which finally annoyed him to the point of asking, "What?" "What's with the garments?" Turning on Noah, he pointed at her accusatorily as he said, "She tricked me into wearing them." "I did not," retorted the girl. "I just thought if you wore something weird, no one would take the time to study your face too closely." "It sure helps with that," replied Bob. "Why would I care about people noticing my face?" Noah smiled as she simply replied, "Because you can change your clothes more easily than you can change your face." The girl's logic made no sense to him, but he did not argue with it further as they kept on. When the grayness around them darkened, they made camp for the night. While Noah got to work starting a fire, Bob went out to look for food. When he returned, all he had were some white flakes, which reminded Ezekiel of puffed up snow. "What is this stuff?" inquired Ezekiel as he curled his lip at the meal. "It's what we eat now," answered Noah. This girl and her explanations were driving him up the wall. Having had enough, he rose, excusing himself as he went off to relieve himself in the woods. When he came back, he forced himself to choke down the flakes, which tasted like breaded honey. Bob had found some berries to go with the white stuff, but they were sour and made Ezekiel's stomach ache. To keep his mind off his churning stomach, he listened to Noah as she tried to gain some light from Bob. "Your sword is whole," reasoned the girl. "You must have some new light to impart to me." Looking hesitant, the older boy finally shrugged as he said, "I don't know the light that well. Sure, I grew up learning about it, but I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing it. What if I say something wrong?" "You don't have to have a school knowledge of the light. A personal testimony would work too." She pointed to a section of her sword which glowed brightly. "This light was given to me by a woman who had lost her baby. She had questioned the source and why he had let it happen, but through her darkness, he showed her his light, and she was able to grow closer to him through it. You could tell me something like that?" He shrugged. "Or even just something simple. A passage from the Bible that has touched your heart." She pointed to another piece of her sword which glowed faintly. "I put no trust in my weapons. They do not bring me victory. It is the source that gives me strength to withstand the storm." Bob looked thoughtful for a moment, as if he had something in mind, but in the end bobbed his shoulders again. "A splinter of light would even be good." She used her nail to point at a tiny beam of light. "The darkness will not overcome the light. That is a promise I hold close to my heart, especially when things get rough. It reminds me that as long as I remain in the light, the darkness will not overtake me. The source won't let it." As if only doing it to make her shut up, Bob finally held out his hands as Noah placed her blade atop his hands. "Those in darkness," stated Bob, "don't know where they are going." On her blade, one of the darkened pieces started to glow, but with a light so faint it was barely noticeable. But even with the small gift, Noah thanked him as if he'd given her a chunk of gold. When this was done, the three headed to their sleeping mats where they did their best to get some rest. In the night, Ezekiel woke to the sound of someone talking and turned to find Noah speaking to her sword. As he listened closer, he realized she was not so much talking to it, but talking about it. Watching her, he saw her place her finger on each of the pieces of light as she repeated to herself what each light conveyed. "We are the light to the world, to bring glory and honor and praise to the source." Moving her finger down to another piece, she touched it as she said, "We receive the light of life through following the source. Men do not accept this light because it shows the darkness in them, and they do not want that to be exposed, so they feel the need to change. They would much rather continue on without realizing their error, but those who want the light will search for it, and the source will reveal it to them." She paused for a moment to yawn widely before returning to what he now assumed must be a nightly routine for her. "Once in the light, live as one in light and separate from the darkness, or in remaining you will open up yourself to being overcome by its power. Only by abiding in the source can we remain in the light, which purifies us and makes us new. Come out of the darkness, come out." Her head began to drop, and soon she had nodded off, her head resting against the blade as she remained sitting up. Rolling over, Ezekiel found Bob to have been watching her as well. When the young man noticed him looking, he rolled away, but not before the youth had noticed something in his eyes. Was it guilt? He was not completely sure, but whatever it was, it had been stirred by seeing Noah's commitment to the light. As he thought about this, while dozing back to sleep, he decided that maybe the girl wasn't as big a space case as he'd originally thought. Maybe. Gazer, Chapter 10. As they journeyed through the woods, Lot soon signaled for them to stop. "I hear something." Creeping through the woods, they came to a break in the trees, through which they saw a bleak ghost town. The place looked utterly desolate, and Jeremiah thought it was abandoned until he heard the sound of groaning. "What is that?" Lot looked sick as she turned away from the scene. This is one of Thotsakon's towns. As she said this, a group of masked individuals stepped out into the streets, groaning as they walked. On their hands and feet, chains as thick as their arms weighed them down as the pained expressions etched into their masks added to the despair of the scene. "I don't get it," stated Jeremiah. "What is this place?" Throughout the world, Thotsakon has places where people have completely turned their lives over to him. Before that, he promises them different things like money, power, and fame. But once he has them, once they've given themselves to the darkness, he casts them aside. The false ruler promises his followers the world, but once he gets what he wants from them, he couldn't care less about what becomes of them. Heading back through the woods away from the town, she motioned for the others to follow. "There's nothing we can do here. Let's go." At lunchtime, Lot made the meal while Momo taught Jeremiah some hand-to-hand basics. Though he remained silent, the man was extra skilled at conveying what he wanted as he adjusted Jeremiah's movements when he was doing them wrong, then made sure the teen paid special attention to what each of his muscles was doing while he performed the move. When food was ready, Jeremiah asked the pair how they had met. "Funny story," replied Lot. "Since Oyabon was a cop, he didn't want me using the skills I'd learned from my dad, but I didn't really see the sense in letting them go rusty. At night, while most girls were out seeing movies with their friends or doing other girly things, I was sneaking into car dumps and alleyways where cars had been abandoned so I could practice my skills of breaking into the cars and hot-wiring them. In college, I was on my way home from a class when I found this perfect old clunker, and just as I'd finished bringing it back to life, I heard a voice ask me what I was doing." She got this distant look in her eyes as she said, "The voice belonged to the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. He had these eyes that sparkled like two sapphires, and his smile—" She let out a sigh that told him she was in her own world as she said, "It was like a lockpick to my heart. As soon as I saw it, I knew I was trapped." She came out of her dreamy state as she looked at the helmeted man. Laughing, she told him, "Now don't go all red on me, Momo." Jeremiah didn't know how she could tell if the man was blushing or not. He figured she was just giving him a hard time as she softly slapped his chest. Anyway, it turns out the car I'd broken into and rewired was his. I apologized and told him what I'd been doing, adding that I'd never imagined that anyone could actually drive something so old. To make up for it, I invited him out to eat, saying I'd pay. She took a hold of the man's arm as she concluded the story by saying, "We've been together ever since." Though she made it seem like both had agreed to the arrangement, Jeremiah wondered if Momo was in fact happy with the outcome. The man seemed like he would be the type to let her know if he did not want her around, but then the girl did not seem the type to take no for an answer. He concluded that however it may have happened, it was now a symbiotic relationship. When they were done with their meal, they headed out again. Just when Jeremiah was starting to get tired of trees, they reached a paved road, and after they had followed it for several hours, they reached a grouping of homes that looked like they were once part of a neighborhood, but now were mostly taken over by nature. Thinking it was just another dark ghetto, he started to turn away, then stopped as he spotted something. Off to the side, a shimmering had appeared over the scene, through which he saw the abandoned houses as they might have appeared long ago. With a cry of excitement, Jeremiah raced toward the portal, ready to jump through and go home when Lot grabbed his arm. "What gives? You can't go through." "And why not?" "Because you—" She looked back at Momo, who did not say a word. "You have to help us get the Darksbane. You said if I came with you, you would help me find a way back, and here," he motioned to the portal, "is my way back." "But you can't go through," explained the girl. "You know that every time an adventurer is pulled into another world, they can't get back until they've completed a task. You haven't completed anything. This isn't a book. This is my life." He started to feel annoyed as he pulled free from the girl's grasp, turning just in time to see the portal close. Turning on the girl, he yelled, "Why couldn't you at least let me try? I could have gone home." Though hurt by his anger at her, she was quiet as she told him, "It wasn't time. You're not ready yet." Without explaining further, she walked ahead of him. Looking back, he saw Momo staring at him. Feeling just as angry at the man, he puffed out his chest as he asked, "What are you looking at?" The man did not say anything as he continued past him, joining his female companion. Letting out a heavy sigh, he looked back at the neighborhood, which looked as bleak as his prospects of ever getting home. Turning away, he followed after the couple that had become, in his mind, nothing more than kidnappers. Speaker, Chapter 14. Elijah had never wondered what it would be like to be homeless. He had not only lived the experience, but he'd come close to it over and again. During his time in foster care, most times he only had one set of clothes to call his own, and absolutely no privacy. As he thought about his past experiences and how tough they had been, he wondered if the source had not allowed the things to happen to him to prepare him for this very moment. Being among a group of kids of all types and temperaments had given him the skills to know when someone was about to snap. With this skill, he was able to tell when people were starting to react badly to Jean's words, so that he could get them out before any harm came to either of them. The first day in their travels, they entered a sanctum where Jean started to share the light. Each of us needs to establish a firm foundation in the source. As she said this, the image of workers building homes appeared to those listening. One foundation was poured on ground that was like sand, as it shifted under the feet of the workers. At another building site, the men had to build on top of a rock, which would not break under any of their tools. Some have built foundations in pleasure, some in worldly gain, but still others have set about growing in their relationship with the source. In the end, these foundations will be tested, and we will see which ones will stand, and which ones will crumble away. The ground shook then as an earthquake shook the earth. As it did, the foundations built in the sand crumbled away to dust. Upon the rock, the foundation there cracked, but when the concrete broke away, it revealed a foundation made of shimmering gold, which shone out like a beacon of light. This foundation, she pointed to the golden one, is the way in which the source will judge if we have firmly planted him in our lives. One woman in the crowd seemed to see something deeper in the vision as she said, "Is that supposed to represent the golden tablets? Are you saying we can't be saved unless we keep them? Don't you know anything? They've been done away with." If they have been done away with, why is the earth and heaven still here? The Word has said that the tablets will not disappear until heaven and earth is no more. "Fine," retorted the woman, "but he has done away with one." If you break one, you've broken them all. Why would he say this if they were not all important? The Lord's tablets are not arbitrary. They do not exist to assert his authority, but to benefit his people, to guide them to do what produces the best results. His instructions are easy to understand and accessible to all. But the time will come, and has now come, when people will not listen to sound teaching. Instead, they will do what suits their dark desires, and gather to them speakers who will say what they want to hear. They will turn themselves from the light, and instead turn to myths and fables. Above her, an image of a dark being spoke to them. As they listened, their bodies began to dim as darkness entered. Some turned away, not giving ear to the words of the Dark One, but those that remained only grew as dark as him. When a speaker of the light came to speak to them, they turned away, continuing to listen to the one of dark. As the image faded, Elijah noticed the ones of darkness turn on the speaker of light. Everything the source makes endures, including his word, including his commands. Nothing can be added to them, and nothing will ever be taken away. This is done so we will know that he does not change, that he is constant and reliable. As we rely on him, we also see he has made a way for us to put away the darkness from our lives, so it may not rule in our lives any longer. No one who continues in darkness lives in him or even knows him. Someone in the crowd cried out with disgust in their voice, "And I bet you think you know him." In his book he reveals himself to us and invites all to come to know him. In his tablets he reveals the way we might be happy, and that joy comes through loving him and others. He is the one that made us, so he knows what will be the best for us, and he asks us to keep his tablets, not because he wants to punish us, because he knows to live apart from him and his commands will only lead to a life of misery. Look at the most miserable people in this world, and you will often find that they are the most selfish. But the tablets call us to love others, to think of them before ourselves, and to put them in the source as first in our lives. The tablets show us what it means to love and how we might live a life of love. This is because they are a reflection of the source's character, which is love. To live opposite of the tablets is to live apart from love, apart from the source. We are all self-centered and selfish. But the tablets show us that a relationship with the source is how we fulfill our desire for unfailing love. If you break the tablets, you are under condemnation. But by the grace of the word shed blood, we can be free from that condemnation. This doesn't free us from obeying, but gives us power to obey. The source did everything for us, and the least we can do is return his love through obeying his voice. When you truly love someone, doing what they ask is never a burden. To fear the source and keep his tablets is man's all. Obeying him is how we show we actually care for him. At the end, the source will look at every work, every action, and every secret thing, whether good or evil. It will be through our fruits that he will know who we served, whether him or our selfish desires. Above her, scenes of people of darkness doing good for others showed. But behind the scenes they stole, they lied, they cheated. And at the end, when their record was looked at, when it was seen what their motives had been, a large red stamp of guilty was placed over their file. Either her words or the display upset the crowd, so much they called out objections and voiced their own passages to back up their claims. A listener broke in and said, "If we declare the word is Lord and believe in our heart that the source raised him, we are saved. That is enough." "That is one aspect, but to believe also means to obey," replied Jean. "And love is the fulfillment of the tablets. They are the thing that defines what it means to love the source and to love our fellow man. If to love is to keep the tablets, then to do things without love is to live in darkness. Therefore, if we are keeping the tablets without a love for the source and others, our actions are the equivalent of darkness." As the crowd began to make hissing sounds, Elijah grabbed Jean and pulled her away from the front and out of the sanctum.